Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of the CNL Podcast. Today I am with my man Mike Wade, and today we're going to be discussing some fun security topics. Mike, what's going on, man?
Oh, just staying busy and trying to keep the bad guys out.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you for hopping on the show, man. So, why don't you kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself so that the audience can get acquainted with you, and then we can kind of kick this off.
So I've been working in IT for over 30 years. I got started in 1979 writing two-dimensional bubble sorts to a Commodore PET, saving my programs to a 10-minute cassette tape. So not to date myself too much, that was 1979. I was 11 years old. Fell in love with computers then, and when the MCSE program became an option in 1995 and 1996, I obtained my MCSE for Windows NT 4, and I've been in IT ever since. And currently, I'm a director in CISO in the banking industry.
Very cool, very cool. So, being in the banking space, what are kind of the top threats that you kind of see that the industry's facing that maybe they're not putting too much attention to?
Well, there's a lot of attacks happening in every environment. So I've worked in most of the verticals throughout my career. And one of the things that I've seen most commonly through my career is that people think their industry is unique, and none of them are really unique. I mean, from a sales and marketing side, they are, but from an IT infrastructure and support, it's systems, servers, applications, and data. I mean, that's it. That's all there is. I don't care if it's medical, research, manufacturing, retail, whatever your vertical, it's data, servers, and so forth. So that's what we have to protect against. So some of the biggest things that I'm seeing across all of the platforms, ransomware has been a big deal. With ransomware, you really need to protect your accounts, your file systems, and be aware of activities on those file systems and user heuristics. So then when you get into, we've seen a huge uptick in phishing and compromised URLs over the last 2 months. Q1, Q2 were very, very quiet for our company and a lot of my peers that I work with across the across various organizations. And I still have contacts in retail, manufacturing, and other verticals. In Northeast Ohio, IT is not a huge group, but the phishing, the compromised links, and ransomware still tend to be the most common things that we're seeing.
So, how do you stay up to date outside of your circle? So, like, I know it's very like, you're very focused on your day-to-day operations, but how do you kind of pop your head out, look around you, what's going on? Do you have any sort of resources that you tend to follow?
One of them that I found probably 6 months ago is TLDR, which is just a newsletter, and they've got a bunch of different elements that you can select with that. I constantly get things from FSISAC, FDIC. I stay apprised on what's going on with the NSA website. And then, believe it or not, social media and just kind of flipping through stuff, you'll run across 90% trash and about 5% that's useful and 3% that's mildly interesting. But honestly, there's data out there as well. Listening to what our peers say, to what the novice say, and what the user and client experience is out there in the world as well. So we need to keep apprised of all of that so that we can best serve our clients and our employees and staff.
What is your go-to methodologies to training your employees? Do you have a set of SOPs that you follow that you feel like are unique outside of other maybe different companies? Would love to hear your perspective on that.
So all of our training, we do quarterly training. We do phishing training every month. We have mandatory annual training. We also have training that comes out of the ABA, which is specific to banking. And I write all of our training material. So one of the things that I concentrate on, especially dealing phishing is, well, phishing and social engineering are our two greatest threats. And it's our frontline workers that give us that exposure. So I spend a lot of time talking about the structures of a URL, the anatomy of a URL, the universal resource locator, so that we can break down that URL just by looking at it, and training the employees that they can hover over a link and see where that link is really going. Understanding the structure of the link and the meanings of the dots and the slashes, so that you don't see facebook.com dot something else and know that you're not going to Facebook, that you're going to some other server. And understanding, if you do click on something, to inform IT immediately. And we also have automated processes so that if rogue applications, executables are detected on the system, then the system is automatically locked down as well.
So, are there any certain components that you feel like companies should maybe put in more effort into training their employees? Like, maybe do you feel like cybersecurity training is kind of like a thing they just throw at them and it's not really focused heavily on?
Most of the companies that I have worked for, there was training once a year. So they would have a 1 hour class, or during October, during security month, they would have a number of things. And then most of the rest of the time, it was ignored. Especially being an engineer and an architect, management really needs to push to those individuals the understanding, importance, and empowerment to take initiatives in the security space. I remember back in the early 2000s, trying to roll out any of the security, we were called the preventers of work, because it seemed like every time we put something for security in place, it broke something else. Now, since 2020, things have gotten a lot more stable, and we're able to provide our clients with a better level of security and without causing those interruptions to production.
So if you were looking back at your like younger self, somebody who's just starting in this space, what pieces of advice would you give them on how to like make sure they have a successful track record? Like, what would you wish somebody told you at a younger age that you know now?
Fortunately, they told me,
Oh,
so
great.
I
Okay.
don't have to wonder. One of my professors, when I was at Miami Jacobs College in Dayton, Ohio, getting my MCSE, our network instructor, security instructor, TCP/IP instructor, and there was one other class. But anyway, he told us the most critical thing to know and keep track of are your logs. And I'll tell you a story. So he's sitting in his lab and he's watching his Windows NT4 servers, and he's seeing all of these security logs to where somebody is trying to attack his authentication servers. Active Directory didn't quite exist yet, but Windows NT4 saw when people were trying to authenticate and logged these authentication failures. He was sitting there watching all of this. The office right across from him was running GroupWise. GroupWise does not have those kinds of logs. All at once, a guy with a whole bunch of brass on his shoulder and two guys with M16s that were not smiling walked into the GroupWise office and said, "Step away from the computer." They grabbed all the cables in one thing and took bolt cutters, cut through everything, picked up the servers, and walked out the door and not said a word to the guy. So to come full circle, the group-wise servers on Wright-Patterson Airfield were compromised by an attacker coming out of Hawaii, and the group-wise administrator never knew his systems had been compromised. The NT4, because of log management, knew that everything was being attacked and that it had not been compromised. So logs
are the most important part of your job, huh?
Absolutely. And reviewing them, collecting them is not enough.
Yeah, for sure. Mike, I appreciate it. I know this has been like a short burst of a podcast, but we're keeping this nice and sweet for people to like just hear something and take away and run with it. Where can people find you on social media?
I don't want them to go there. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And so make sure it's an interesting message. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to respond to you. Get a lot of salespeople on there. And
talk about his bald head. You guys should offer him hair products. He'll respond.
And but it's Robert Wade on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you for hopping on the podcast, my man. And for everybody that listened, if you guys enjoyed, please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.